All right, good morning everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and welcome to our first New Year meeting. So let me wish you a Happy New Year as well. This morning we have our esteemed guests from high school, so we'll get to that in a minute. Very quickly, I'll just start with the news and events information. One thing I wanted to share with all, everything that we share here from PTO perspective is all posted on our website. So please go to WAMS PTO website, which is wamspto.com. Everything is announced there, and latest information is always posted every Friday. So, and you can reach us anytime, wamspto@yahoo.com. All the PTO board members are right here. So anything you want to ask after this meeting, please feel free to stop by and talk to one of us. From PTO perspective, I wanted to announce we'll have some board positions opening up later this month. So feel free to reach out to any of us if you want to know more. And okay, AO, some sports announcements before we get to our main agenda. So Stephanie, can you please come?
Thanks for coming. Just wanted to mention that the winter sports season is underway. Boys and girls basketball have had games for about a month now. Boys volleyball starts their games this week. Last week we opened registration for spring sports. If any of your children are interested, that will be open until February 22nd. So we have clinics and teams offered. The clinics are for 6th, 7th, and 8th. The teams are for 7th and 8th. I think the clinics and track and field have a wait list, but if you're interested, put your name on the wait list. And then boys and girls lacrosse and girls softball are open to 7th and 8th graders, and you can still sign up until the end, or February 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I will pass it on to Mr. Teresi, who will give us our school update, and then we'll introduce our guest speakers this morning. I also want to let you know we are going to start recording now. So if you have any questions, just keep that in mind that we are recording it for the benefit of others who are not here today.
Thank you. Good morning. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Adam Teresi. I'm the 8th grade assistant principal. Mrs. Hudak apologizes she couldn't be here this morning. Although a lot of the things that you're going to hear about and some of the things that I'm going to mention are mainly related to 8th grade and transition to high school. So some of the things that have been happening here are a good transition right into the presentation you're about to see. Last week we had a grade level assembly where the same speakers were here to talk about the scheduling process for Ridge High School for the 8th grade. The scheduling sessions will be taking place later in February. I believe it's the last week of February in the Media Center. I think that information was sent out already. Yeah. So you'll get a lot of the necessary information this morning. Hopefully, a lot of you were able to make it to academic planning night last week at Ridge High School, where, again, a lot of that information was shared with parents and students. There's one other thing I did want to mention. There was a note that went home, and it was also in my newsletter, and there will probably be a follow-up communication as well. We are participating in something called NAEP testing this year. NAEP is the National Association of Educational Progress. Does that sound about right? It's a state given by, it's a test given by the Federal Department of Education, and basically they're basically comparing schools and scores across the country. Names aren't shared or anything like that. Our entire 8th grade is not taking it. They do randomly select 50 students out of the class. I believe it's being given in 4th grade as well. It's a 4th grade and 8th grade assessment. It's not something we do every year, but it is sort of passed around the districts of the state of New Jersey, and this year is our turn. So that information has already gone home at least twice. There will be another later communication, at least to those of the 50 students who have been selected. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then you would have to, if that's not something you were willing to participate in, as the letter indicated, you would have to let Mrs. Hudak know by a given date. So if there's any questions specific to that, you can reach out to me personally. I just don't want to take away any more time here. So I'm just going to, at this point, introduce our speakers for today, who I'm sure are going to give you a wealth of information. We have Ms. Kristen Fox, the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. I often forget the curriculum part. I have Ms. Stephanie Smith, she's the Director of School Counseling for the district, and Mr. Drew Krauss is the principal at Ridge High School. Okay, have a great morning, thanks.
Good morning. Technical difficulties, please stand by. Good morning. We're up and running again. My name is Drew Krauss. I'm the principal at Ridge High School. Welcome. If some of you were at the academic planning night, good to see you again. If it's your first time here with us, good to see you. We're going to share some information with you about the transition to Ridge High School. We look forward to the 8th graders coming up every year. This is now my 3rd time here within the last month. I was in here in December speaking to the students during their day of giving, I guess the community service day. I was down here, we were here last week, the 3 of us, talking about the transition and programming, and now we're here again. And we saw some of the students again on academic planning night as well as the parents. So, we're here again to proceed with this. So just as by way of background, this is our administrative team up at the high school, and I guess for your purposes, the assistant principal that will be in charge of grade 9, and she was here with us last week, introducing herself to the 8th graders, is Miss Kathleen Dusebout. She will stick with that grade 9 class all the way up through their senior year. So unlike here at William Manning, where they rotate different assistant principals as they move up the grades, Ms. Dusebout will be the dedicated assistant principal for the class of 2023 for all 4 years that they're in high school. Some other administrative folks that we have at the high school, obviously Mrs. Smith is here and she's housed in our high school. We have our school resource officer, Officer Albanese, who has an office in our high school, and our athletic director, Mr. Shello, who also doubles as our phys ed supervisor, K-12. So he's got his hands full. And if you're ever at any of the athletic events at the high school, Mr. Shello seems to live there because we always have something going on athletically. And he does a fantastic job. So here's the support staff at the high school that will support the grade 8 students coming up in the 4 years that they're here through 2023. Obviously our teachers are first and foremost. Those are the folks that are, on the front lines with them, for the lack of a better term. They'll work with them, they'll mentor them, they will help them. Our teachers bend over backwards for our students, I can tell you that. We have 2 student assistant counselors who are dedicated by grade level. So the student assistance counselor, I believe it would be Miss Anthony next year, Miss Tony Anthony, she will stick with that grade level, just like Miss Dusebout will, for all 4 years as they proceed through the high school. Our school nurses, we have subject area supervisors, K-12. Ms. Fox used to be our social studies supervisor, K-12. Now it's Ms. Rayfields, who was here with me just in December, speaking to the students. CST personnel, so if there's an IEP involved in a student's education, there's a dedicated case manager and a child study team working with those students. Administrative support staff in the building, our custodial staff, and we will have freshman class advisors who have yet to be named. They will apply at the end of the year for that, duty. And these folks will be working with these students over the next 4 years that they're at Ridge High School. They will work closely with them. In terms of class advisors, I meet with them quarterly in terms of planning events for the classes. This is something I started to do last year, so it's been pretty productive doing that. So this is what our message is to our freshmen coming in. The transition to high schools, it's a big change. I know here there's teaming involved in the high school. We don't have that sense of teaming. So when you walk into that building on day one, it can be somewhat overwhelming because the building is big. But what we tell them as they come through the doors, we're here for you to succeed. We want you to succeed, and we're going to help you to do that any way we possibly can. One of my big messages to them, and you can ask any senior that's on their way out the door in June, is it goes fast. 4 years, although it might seem like an eternity when you're 14 or 15 years old, is like a blink of an eye. And I tell them, you know what, appreciate the moment, because there's only one 4-year span in high school and it goes quickly. Obviously, don't be afraid to ask questions or ask for help. You know, the folks at the high school are there because we've chosen our life, you know, to work with students and help them along in the process. So we have people there, you know, there to help. So ask for help if you need it. More freedom equals more responsibility. So as they move on to the high school, and they become a little more, have more freedoms involved, you know, there's more responsibility with that. So we preach that at the high school. And of course, we do tell them that, you know what, unlike elementary or middle school, you know, you're developing your resume, if you will, over 4 years at the high school. So there is a transcript that reflects your academic performance. There is, you know, things such as getting involved in clubs and activities that might go into an application process in terms of reflection when you apply to colleges or for your career path. So there is a sense of keeping score, and that, you know, you hear it once, you hear it 100 times. Freshman year is very, very, very important to get off to that good start. This is some advice I always like to share with the students from upperclassmen. You now have a clean slate. So what type of future do you want to have? You know, you're coming in, you do have that clean slate. This is your chance to build that resume, if you will. And you've got to think about, and you don't have to have the answer as soon as you walk through the door, but as you work your way through, know that you're building from the beginning and building your way up over 4 years. Get involved. I always say this. You know, if you're not involved at our high school, you're doing something wrong, because we have over 100 clubs to get involved in. You know, the performing arts, athletics, forensics, mock trial. I mean, you name it, we've got something for everybody at Ridge High School. So to become part of the fabric of our high school community, I urge and almost plead with students to get involved in things that we have there. There's always something for them to get involved in. Always strive to do your best, no regrets. You know, you don't want to look back on 4 years and say, gee, shoulda, woulda, coulda, you know. Give it your all. We're here to help to make it the best 4 years that you'll ever have. And again, I said this before, professionals in the building are there as a resource, so use them. I always like to mention at this time our school counselors and our school student assistance counselors. They're a vital part of a student's, you know, high school experience, and they're there with you every step of the way, as is the administration and our supervisors as well. So please take advantage of those folks to help you. That's what I tell the kids. Here's our 9-period day schedule. Classes are 42 minutes. We have 5 lunch periods, and that's just because of capacity. And so here's some other information I'd like to share with attendance. Unlike, you know, elementary or middle school, you can what's called cume out of a class if you have too many absences, even if you've passed that class. Now, in an ideal world, a lot of absences should equal a lot of, you know, poor performance in class, but there are times that kids are allowed to make up work, etc. But for any class, full-year class, you have 11 absences you can have per semester, which is fairly generous. And for health and PE, you have 5 that you can have for every marking period. You go above that, you can lose credit in that class, like I said, even if you have a passing grade in that class. And that's state requirements. There's supposed to be regular attendance for high school at this level. There are some things that won't account against a student for loss of credit. If you're going on a field trip that's sponsored by the school or a sporting event, because we have students leaving almost daily. You know, just the other day we had kids going to a hockey match that was scheduled for 2:30, so they had to leave early to get there on time. That won't count against you. Religious holidays recognized by the New Jersey Department of Education. School suspension, because that's administratively imposed. 3 college visits for juniors and seniors, and take your child to work day. According to the NJDOE, those will not count against loss of credit if students are absent for those. Cell phones. So again, with more freedom comes more responsibility. We don't have students stow their cell phones away in lockers all day. With nearly 1,900 students, that's a pretty difficult task to try to impose if we were going to. And it doesn't seem like students use their lockers very often at the high school. They're all walking around with backpacks We try, but this is the way it goes there. However, they need to know this. I mean, you could use those in common areas, study hall, lunch, things like that. But there's a policy now, a district policy, says when a student enters a classroom, they're supposed to surrender their phone into a bin or something the teacher has in the room. Usually they're using these fotels, which are pockets that they can put them in, and so that instruction can proceed without constant interruption. A student or students can use their cell phone in class if it's used for instructional purposes by the teacher. I've seen teachers have students use cell phones for games such as Kahoot, which is something they do. It's like a trivia game, things of that nature. But they're not supposed to have their phones on them in class unless it's for instructional purposes. State law requires that we conduct a minimum of 2 security drills per month, and that we follow the standard response protocol, which is adopted by Somerset County to deal with emergencies. We've beefed up our security measures at the high school, which I think parents love to know. And we even now have a roving campus monitor in our building who's checking doors, windows, and things of that nature just to make sure the building is secure. So we've made, I think, great strides in securing our building in this regard. There's academic integrity policy, which is used to combat cheating or things of that nature. So students need to be aware of that coming in the door, that we take very seriously. HIB, like anything here or at any level in school, is handled according to state law, so we take that seriously. And we do, at some events, use the passive breath alcohol sensor device, which is something we use to screen kids coming into events, whether it's football games or the prom or things of that nature, to make sure that they are fair, square, and legal, if you will, okay? And because really, we're worried about their well-being, all right? Here's other things, getting information. You know, we have an instant alert system, Friday folder. I will send e-blasts sometimes over our school information system, which is now Aspen. There's the homepage on our Ridge homepage. Daily announcements are given in school. We post our daily announcements as well for students to see. There's an outside LCD sign in front of the building, and Naviance is a tool mainly used by guidance to get messages out. We are also posting new televisions throughout the building that will scroll messages as well, so that's in the process. And last, option 2, phys ed. For freshmen, you can have, this is a way to get alternative credit for phys ed versus the traditional phys ed class. And for freshmen, that would be for marking periods 2 and 3 only, because marking period 1, they are engaged in what's called Project Adventure, which is a peer leadership program, and marking period 4, they have classroom-based health class. And so the option 2 program allows them to either earn phys ed credits if they're involved in a Ridge sport. Let's say someone does fencing, they would apply for that for either marking period 2 and or 3, when that runs or whatever that happens to be. Or if a student is doing some sort of off-site activity, like my daughter, our daughters have done club soccer, and we have a lot of students doing that. They can apply to have their soccer coach out there verify that they're meeting the phys ed requirements for the state of New Jersey, which are 150 minutes minimally per week over the length of the marking period. For each marking period a student wants to do option 2, they have to apply. It doesn't carry over. So if I apply marking period 2, and I get that option 2 credit, I want to do marking period 3, you have to apply marking period 3 as well. There are notices that are sent out, forms are sent out for those that want to apply, reminders for that particular deadline. The last thing I'll say with option 2 is that if you choose to do option 2, your phys ed class, where it would normally fall in your schedule, is replaced with a study hall period only. You cannot replace that phys ed with an additional class. So it becomes a study hall for students where your phys ed would ordinarily fall in your schedule. But of course, as a student, you can also choose to take phys ed, and you take it in that particular period if you want to do that, okay? So that's really the option 2 piece here, and for freshmen, marking periods 2 and 3 because of Project Adventure and Health, okay? In here. Okay, so I'm going to pass this off to Mrs. Smith at this point, and she's going to talk a little bit about the transition to our high school in terms of these components and share some other information with you. Okay, Mrs. Smith.
right, good morning. So coming around, being passed out right now is our amendments at a glance document. So this is a document that is in the program of studies, and I'll get to this in a minute, explaining exactly what that is. But if you can hang on to that, that would be great. So up on the screen, we have categorized the transition to Ridge High School in and of itself. And so I was with a counselor and a student yesterday, and I asked her, how would you describe the transition from WAMS to Ridge? And she said, I think if there's one thing that sticks out, I just love the freedom that I have. I was ready for it, I'm in high school, and I love my freedom. So it's been echoed by our students before. It's high school. And so what we say to them to get them excited about coming to Ridge is that here at WAMS, you are supported in a team model, and it's wonderful here. And at the high school, what they can look forward to is really their individual freedom. And so they have the ability, if they qualify for a class, to take any class in the school, theoretically by any of the teachers. And so it's something that we talk to our kids about in terms of framing their freedom at the high school. In terms of their social and emotional growth, it's obviously a time in their life that the kids who they are right now are different than the young men and women who will walk across the stage 4 years from now. And so there will be ups and downs throughout high school. We are here to support them, yes, but there will be challenges along the way. With those challenges come plenty of different opportunities. Mr. Krauss has highlighted for you the various ways that they can become involved in the school culture. With over 100 different clubs, activities, sports, they can really find what it is that they're passionate about. We also talk to the kids about the importance of finding and discovering what you're interested in is equally as valuable as discovering what you are not interested in. And so high school is the time to explore different interests, to take different classes, and to find what it is that you might want to pursue after high school. That after high school component is the post-secondary planning. So secondary school being middle and high school, and then your post-secondary planning is whichever path you choose to pursue. So whether that's a 4-year school, a 2-year school, an apprenticeship, taking a gap year, the military, whatever the dreams and aspirations are of our students, we're here to support them from day one so that they can start to academically plan to get themselves in a position where they can pursue their passions and interests post-secondary. So now we turn to the document that's been passed out in front of you. This is our amendments at a glance. And so every year when we update our program of studies, we're working in a very detailed fashion with course entry criteria, sequencing, course content, course descriptions, but it's easier for all of us, including the public, just to have one quick at-a-glance document that really encapsulates all of the changes that we've made this year in our amendments. So that's the purpose of this document here. In a minute, we'll get into more detail about specifically which of these amendments apply to you and your rising 9th grader. But if you take a look at that, what we really want to share with you today is the why behind all of those changes. And so we are passionate about our SEL, our social and emotional learning district goal number 2, and the initiatives surrounding and supporting district goal number 2. So with the SEL initiatives that we have, we want to make sure that everything that we're doing, considering, and making amendments to in the program of studies is really speaking to our SEL initiatives. And so you'll see in that document that there are changes to several different parameters that we've set into place regarding the scheduling timeline, the ability to have firm deadlines in terms of when to make schedule changes, the processes that are in place in terms of leveling changes with classes, and then what we've also done is create really clear parameters with grading procedures if you were to make schedule changes. So all of this clarity that we've provided and these parameters that we've put into process with grading and course entry criteria, it's all to speak to that SEL initiative. What we have also done that you'll see on that document is expand our health program. And so we'll talk more about that when we get into course content later on in the program, but what we really want to emphasize is that by doing this, what we're passionate about is giving our students extended opportunities to engage in meaningful discourse, dialogue, projects, and the opportunity to participate in the health program that, again, speaks and supports to our SEL initiatives. Relative to that, we are also creating our first parent academy, so we encourage all of you to join us for our first session, which is at the end of February 28th, 7th. Thank you. The location is TBD up there, but we have just booked this space right here, the auditorium for you. And so the topic that we are addressing is distress or eustress. So eustress being a term for healthy stress. And so part of these changes and part of just the process of academic planning can be and is in many ways very overwhelming. So our students have their future in mind, right? They're thinking about that 4-year plan, but especially for our current 8th grade kids, we're just trying to get to high school. And so we want to have a discussion about, all of the opportunities that you have, the challenges that may come with that, how it can be overwhelming. Yes, you have a strong support system to help you get through it in high school, but we also, want to encourage our kids to embrace a certain level of stress and certain stressors as healthy stress. And so that's the dialogue that we are going to be engaging in for this Parent Academy, how you all can help your students manage, accept, embrace, and conquer some healthy stressors in their life. So the timeline that I was referring to earlier, what we've tried to do on the screen here is indicate for you what is new. So you'll see in an asterisk the processes that we've put into place that are new amendments this year. At the end of January, we are incorporating, so that's right now basically, incorporating the teacher recommendation process. So we have asked our teachers to spend their time really, being thoughtful about how they are recommending their students to proceed to the next grade level. And so that's happening at the middle school and at the high school. Those recommendations are not binding, and they are part of the bigger picture, right? They are a piece of the overall puzzle. So you have the teacher recommendation for what level of classes you should pursue the next time. You have your counselor's recommendation, the parent perspective. Obviously, you all are a vital piece of that. You see the picture that we don't see. So you see what's going on at home, the extracurricular commitments, the overall involvement, how much time your children are spending on their work, what they're interested in. And then the most important voice in this conversation and in making these decisions being the student. So all of those different, recommendations and considerations in place, that's how, we want you to be as informed as possible in that process. And so that's why we've incorporated the teacher's voice into making recommendations for course planning specifically. You'll also notice that there's a new deadline in case any of you have older students at the high school for the late falls and honors appeals. And so that is at the end of June. As opposed to in the past, it's been in July. So we've bumped that up so that we can have more time to really craft our master schedule and try to get the students into as many classes as they've indicated are their first and second choice as possible. Not always possible, but we want to have as much time as possible to do that. At the bottom of the screen here, you will also see that on August 26th, that's our goal to make all of the schedules public, and so you'll be able to view that on the student information system. And then we have also opened up a window at that time for you to be able to make changes. So we understand that, the last day for you to make changes to your course requests is April 5th. We need that deadline to be firm because then we get all the wheels in motion to build our master schedule. And so from April 5th, we're looking at course tallies, the requests from the students, their alternate choices, and we're building our master schedule and deciding on different sections of different classes all throughout the summer. However, things can change. The kids themselves can have different experiences or interests that come to light in the summer, and maybe they didn't get the top 1 or 2 choices that they've indicated to us. And so we are opening up a window at the end of August. Of course, that will be dependent upon what's available at that time, given the master scheduling constraints, but at least that you will be able to make requests directly to your child's school counselor to see what some options are. For adding, dropping, and level changes, let's see what's asterisk up here. If your child, there are certain dates up on the screen, and if your child makes a change or entirely withdraws from a class after the set dates on the screen there will be a W on their transcript to indicate their progression through their courses, and it's only with the children completely withdraw from a class. So if you are level changing, so if you are moving to a CP class from an honors level or an AP class, there's just the course title will remain on your transcript. But please be advised that if you entirely withdraw outside of these set dates, then there will be a W on the transcript. For level changes, you'll see here that there are new dates. It is a new year, so just be advised of the new dates to make those changes. Level changes cannot occur after October 10th. Like I said earlier, we have streamlined the processes for grading in the classes when we're making these changes. And so the grade, you'll notice here at the bottom of the screen, of the new class will be determined by the new teacher. And at this time, I will turn it over to Mrs. Fox to give you an update on freshman programming.
Good morning. So you've heard a lot of information this morning about the scheduling process, and our primary goal in communicating to you this morning are the things that specifically relate to the rising freshmen, and things for you to consider as your kids move into the high school. So programming-wise, I'm going to share some of those details with you now. First and foremost, Mr. Krauss has been working on this for a little while, but we are looking at the transition of the freshmen specifically and the opportunities that they have in just arriving at the high school, but then for those first few months and the entire year. So we are looking to revamp freshman orientation in terms of the activities and the way that peer leaders are involved, expanding that programming so that's a really fun experience for them and that they feel welcome to the high school and that they're aware of all of their opportunities in front of them. And so hopefully we're keeping some of those secrets still, right, Mrs. Smith and Mr. Krauss, so that the kids really are enticed to come and see what we have for them, and it helps transition them to the high school smoothly. Ms. Smith already outlined some of the purposes behind this, but I wanted to spend a little bit more time on this since it is new, and for those of you who have students in the high school, you particularly know that this is new. But we want to make sure that the messaging on this is what we intend. Long ago, there were teacher recommendations tied to course placements, and the placement depended on the teacher recommendation. You were required to have a teacher recommendation long ago, years ago, in order to qualify to move into a course. That's not the case now, and it's not the purpose behind what we're doing. We are looking at this in partnership with you, between the counselor, the parents, and the students, to make informed choices. But we want you to partner with us as well, and recognize that the teachers know your students in a certain way, in class. They've worked with them over half of the year at this point, and by the end of the year, for an entire year. And so they have good advice to offer when you're making your decisions. A grade alone does not always tell the story of what a student can or cannot do. So we really want students to appropriately challenge themselves. We want them to take honors classes when it's appropriate for them, when they're ready to make that move. But we want them to think about the type of learner they are, the type of interest that they have, and asking their teacher for that advice is a really important thing. But again, it's only advice, and so you do not have to take the teacher's recommendation. The student is qualified to take the course, and they feel like they can, and they're up to the challenge, they should. But we're just asking the teachers to give their input to help you make that decision. One of the difficulties in transitioning to high school is making these decisions that are best for them. There's a lot of pressure to take all honors courses, to take a lot of AP courses, and sometimes that's the right move. But for some students, it's really not. And it can be okay to transition to all CP or an honors or two class and add them as they go. So we really want students to have those discussions in terms of the whole picture. What's the rest of their day going to look like? What's the rest of their life going to look like? So nobody has the full picture like you do, but you can take the advice from the people who are working with your students and make the best decision. That's where this is coming from. So know that teachers aren't necessarily going to give a recommendation for all students. They're really intended for students on the borderline. A student who maybe barely qualifies, it's important to know that they qualified, but they might have worked, they might have, the amount of work that went into qualifying might be something that indicates that maybe they're not ready to make that move yet. Or maybe by making that move, it's going to require an enormous amount of effort that they may not be willing to put in. Or that they may be looking at not earning the grade that they'd like to earn at that next level. So that student on the borderline is somebody who the teacher recommendation might help them make the decision either way. Similarly, a student who's not quite qualifying could be encouraged by their teacher to work harder to qualify, to consider making an appeal, that they really might be a student ready to go to honors if they just believe in themselves a little bit. So it can kind of work both ways. So for that reason, there might not be recommendations from every student, from the teacher. And finally, I think I've already said this, but the recommendations are not binding. The teacher says, I don't think they're ready for honors, but they qualify, they can still take honors. So I don't want you to look at the teacher recommendation as any type of a barrier, but simply intended as advice. In the previous presentations we've made, I outlined all of the changes, but for today I just highlighted the ones that particularly impact rising freshmen, so I just wanted to review those. In the science department, we've changed the qualification for honors bio. Previously, students had to have completed Algebra 1 in addition to earning the grade criteria for honors biology. So now they just need the science grade to qualify to take honors biology, which is great because mathematics is not necessarily an indicator for potential success in honors biology. But mathematics does become important the next year when a student wants to consider honors chemistry. So the consideration here is that a student who hasn't completed Algebra 1 but qualifies for honors biology would only be able to continue into honors chemistry if they double up on mathematics in their sophomore year and complete geometry or take geometry and Algebra 2 at the same time. So the mathematics become important in 10th grade, but we don't want to hold back a freshman who's ready to take honors biology. So that requirement has been changed. The career education department is a renaming of the technology and the business department, looking at career pathways and opportunities for students to explore different future careers, trying them out to see what they're interested in and what they might not be interested in. So within that department, you'll find all of the tech ed courses, you'll find all of the business courses. They all fulfill 21st century learning graduation requirements. And they are opportunities to explore some different pathways, potentially earn some designations on their transcript. Those things are outlined in the program of studies for you in great detail. There is a new course that I pointed out to the students, Game Design and Development, which is a continuation of one of the cycle courses at the middle school that some of the students might be interested in taking. I have no idea how many students are going to sign up for that, but as we've noted, based in these courses will determine how many sections we run and how many we can run could impact who is put in the course and who is not. So if there's overwhelming requests for example, that course, they may not all get that first request, but they would have 4 years to try to take the course if they were interested in like that. There is a revised graduation requirement offering for the financial literacy graduation requirement. All students must take 2.5 credits in personal financial literacy, and there are a couple of different ways to earn that credit. The new way is a hybrid online offering. Previously, students could take the course through Eduseer or one of our other providers, but going forward, you can take the online course, but it is a Ridge-developed online course. Students would complete the coursework on their own, but they would be required to come in during the summer to take the end-of-course assessment. So that can be done anytime during high school. It doesn't have to be, before freshman year. But the dates for the summer assessment are set. They are in the program of studies now. If you go to the course description, there are 2 links that take you to an application that tell you what those dates are. And if those dates don't work for you, you can either take one of the course offerings in the building, or you can wait for a future year to see if those summer dates work for you at another time. Similarly, or related changes in the social studies department. So currently, the AP Economics course will also fulfill the personal financial literacy requirement, but it will only meet that requirement through the year 2021-2022. After that, you would have to earn that graduation requirement through one of the other offerings. There simply is not enough time in a school year to cover 2 AP courses, microeconomics and macroeconomics, and the personal financial literacy requirements. So we are phasing it out for the students who've already begun their course planning, but after that we will be doing that, providing that in these other alternative ways. Some of the offerings in the World Language Department that expanded are related to the American Sign Language program that was relatively newly added to the program, I think 2 years ago. So those offerings have expanded to include all levels 2 through 4 and the honors level. And as mentioned in physical education, we've made a couple of changes to the health programming. One in particular is just in order to meet state requirements, students need to be enrolled in the same course section of health and phys ed. And so it meets at the same time, in the same period, with the same teacher, at least 4 days out of the week. In addition, as you might know, the sophomore and juniors will be taking an additional marking period of health starting next year. Mr. Krauss? So, before we open it up to questions, do you have a few more?
I do.
Okay. One more thing to add.
Good, thank you. So if you were at the academic planning night in the auditorium session, I ended those sessions by reading something that was sent to us by a group of parents of high school seniors. And I thought it was a pretty powerful message, and I want to, if you weren't there, this will be new for you. If you were there, you indulge me by listening to it again, because I think the message is pretty important. And I want to take a moment to pass on some advice from the senior parents. It says this: one mother said if she could go back and speak to her younger self when her kids were freshmen, she would say this: most parents attend nights like these, talks about academics, college planning, sports banquets, and back to school nights. The auditorium is usually always packed. However, please do not overlook the other educational opportunities that the school provides throughout the year. It is at these presentations that you will learn about the very different world that your child is navigating and how best to guide him or her. Across the United States, there are alarming trends in affluent districts like ours, record levels of anxiety and depression, suicide, and drug and alcohol misuse and abuse. The pressures and pitfalls associated with social media and technology are things that we did not have to worry about in high school. It is very important for parents to become educated about the realities of their teen's world. Trends in these areas change quickly, so parents need to revisit these topics throughout their child's education. If you can't make an event, often they are taped or the PowerPoint slides are posted to the district website. Or read a book written by the presenter at one of these events. There are always ways to stay informed, even if you can't make it to the actual program. Also, you've probably heard that the years ahead can be trying times. Teenagers don't come with instruction manuals, and they are not always, parentheses, how do I put this delicately, easy to love or get along with. They will make mistakes. You will make mistakes. They will drive you crazy. You will drive them crazier. Some of the programs provided teach how to parent through these difficult times, how to maintain loving relationships with the kids while working through or talking about the tough stuff. Yes, the GPAs and SAT scores are important, but who they are becoming as people is crucial. As you move through this evening, this was the other night, and learn about all that is amazing, this amazing school has to offer, meaning Ridge, make a commitment to remain engaged as a parent and to keep learning right alongside your student for the next 4 years. Hold on tight. It's going to be a bumpy but amazing ride. So I wanted to share that because, yes, I'll be the first to say that academics are important. We want to educate our students. But their well-being is also important to us as well. And we just want to stress that because it's a difficult time in this world these days with kids. And it's a completely different world than I grew up in when I was in high school many years ago. So please understand when we talk about some of these changes we've made and some of the support people we have at the high school, it's for their well-being because we care. So I just wanted to end with that before any question and answer, because I thought it was a very powerful message, especially for those who have children who may be entering the high school for the first time. So thank you for listening. Yes, sir. And questions, sure. Hi.
Yes, Thank you. I have two questions, please. One is if you could give an overview, if you think it's relevant right now, of the volunteer obligations. And secondly, I just wondered if you had any type of program or protocol at all in terms of anti-bullying.
Okay, I'll take your first question about volunteering, community service requirements. If you go to the Ridge High School website, student activities, community service opportunities, that would be the link. So that page kind of covers all of the community service related items for the high school. So there are really three different types of volunteering and community service that you should be aware of. First, the National Honor Society does require 12 hours of volunteering each year. So that's the advisor for that program is on that page. Second, there is an awards program every year that encourages kids to document their hours, and at the end of the year, they can earn a bronze, silver, or gold award for completing 100, 200, or 250 hours of service. That is managed through Scott Thompson's office, and that's posted on that site as well. So they maintain a log of places where kids have donated their time, volunteered their time, and the forms that they need to document those hours. And then lastly, and that's open to all students, so freshmen as well. Lastly, in the sophomore year, students are required to complete 25 hours of service as part of the U.S. history course and the first of 2 years of the graduation requirement in social studies for U.S. history. That information about that requirement will come out towards the end of freshman year. It'll be posted online, it'll be emailed home to you, blasted home to you as many ways as we can, and it'll be shared with the students in class. And they can start accumulating those hours May 1st of their freshman year. And we do that because most students like to take advantage of the summer. Obviously that works better for a lot of kids' schedules if they can do that. So they can start accruing the hours after May 1st, and they have all the way until April 30th of their sophomore year to earn those 25 hours. And then this is all outlined on that website. There's an assignment that goes with it once they complete their hours. So it explains on the site, and it will when the new requirements come out, because every year we tweak it slightly based upon feedback. But they need to consider what organization they're going to work with, and it needs to be approved, and there's a process to engage in, whether it's an already approved organization or they can submit a form if they want to have us consider a new organization. So that's all on that website that I mentioned, and that really covers community service opportunities that we formally oversee. And I think Mr. Krauss will handle your second question.
Yeah, in terms of the anti-bullying piece, we part of our health curriculum involves anti-bullying education. Our school safety team analyzes data that they have. Our school safety team is run by our school student assistance counselors, administrators, teachers. So they are on the forefront of doing that. Our Week of Respect is something we take seriously and have programming for students along those lines. And there's some things we're going to implement this year for the Week of Respect, a little bit different than what we've done in the past. So yes, there is programming involved in terms of anti-bullying.
So the summer before, you're asking about the U.S. history requirement?
No.
Just the award, the goal, the awards? Yeah, I think it begins when they start high school for the awards, yeah.
Excuse me, I understand the addition of the health class for 10th grade and 11th grade has caused some controversy with parents. What's in the class and why did you add it?
So on Monday night, we're going to be addressing the Board of Education on this topic because we do know that there have been some questions raised. And so we would hold off on providing that until then, and I encourage you to either come or watch the presentation that's posted online afterwards. And so we will definitely cover that.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify something about the
June 24th appeal deadline. I think it was Mrs. Smith earlier who said that this is also for the students who didn't get into their first or second choice courses. So when do the students find out which courses they got into?
So when the scheduling process happens in February, you sit down and you choose your courses based on what your grades are currently. So if you are qualified for honors, you will be permitted to schedule for an honors course. At the end of the year, it is reviewed, and if you no longer qualify, you would automatically be withdrawn, moved down into the college prep level of that course. If it goes the other way though, if you don't qualify at scheduling, you would be scheduled into the college prep course, and then you have a couple of things that could happen at the end of the year. If your grade comes up, you can ask to be moved into honors, but we won't move you into honors unless you tell us to. You need to know that that's what you actually want. So there's a late qualification form that you would fill out for that. You earn the grade at the end of the year, but you want to tell us to make that course request change. The second thing is if you still are no longer qualified for the course at the end of the year, you can submit an appeal form. And that's where the student would submit their explanation for why they didn't earn the grade criteria and why they still think they would be successful in the course and want to be considered for it. So those two forms are due by June 24th. And so you said, I think you also want to know when they'll know what their grades are? No, okay. Just whether they can schedule it in February.
For example, you mentioned earlier courses like the game design and development, and maybe others. Some students may not be able to get in because it's oversubscribed. So they won't actually know until August 26th when they get into those. So the appeals process is just the CP versus honors.
It is, a distinction is that in April through April, you're making course requests, telling us what you'd like to take. Your first request, your second, some alternates, and as well as whether you'd like to be in honors or CP. August 26th is when your actual schedule comes out and you see your classes that you actually got. And so that window allows you to make a request to change your schedule, right? So that needs to be based on some sort of reason, and it will be subject to seat availability. So let's say you didn't get your first choice. You could make an inquiry to see if now there are openings or not, once the whole schedule has, been worked out, and there may or may not be seats at that time. But you might also, as Ms. Smith indicated, just change your mind and want a different course. Or you may have taken a look at that summer assignment and said, maybe not, and you want to change your level as well. You can do that at that time. So those are the types of things you might do once you see your schedule. But there's a note, we're not going to make changes based on like the teacher you got, or as a lot of freshmen ask, can I change my lunch period? Like there are reasons that we would not consider for those course schedule changes, but then there are a lot of really good reasons as well. Okay?
Can you define weighted grades? So can you define weighted grades?
Weighted grades. In the program of studies, there is a chart that shows how the GPA is calculated. Is that what you're asking about?
Okay. We've got something when we spoke today, when we went to different stations, that said something about certain classes having weighted.
Weighted. Well, for the GPA calculation, there is a different weighting for a college prep course, an honors course, and an AP course. And so when the GPA is calculated, there's more weight given to courses at the honors or the AP level for that calculation. So there is a chart that shows you how that's calculated in the program studies. I think that's what they were probably talking about.
The teacher's recommendations that you mentioned, how do we parents get to see them? Are they going to be on the app to ask?
That's a good question. Yeah, that will be on the portal. So on your portal, on the student portal, on the parent and family portal, at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see what those recommendations were by the teacher. For William Ann, they're due February 21st.
The teachers are working on
Yeah.
it, but not due until the window when we actually come
Right.
down here to schedule your kids. They have until then to submit their
So the first scheduling appointment, I think, is February 22nd,
20.
20th, 21st. Which one is it? And so they're due right before that, so the teachers can sort of give consideration up until that time. The teachers? I mean, honestly, teachers might make them sooner, right? They can make them, the window is open now, and some are. But we're giving them that time because they're, well, and also their students are still, it's middle of the year. It's kind of hard to make that call right now. It's a little bit of an educated guess, and it might be updated at the end of the year as well. Another one?
Yeah, what are freshman advisors?
What are they?
Yeah, are they upperclassmen or are they?
The peer advisors that were on the,
Class advisors?
oh, class advisors.
They're individual, it could be one or usually we have two per class, but they work with the class officers to do things like fundraising for the class.
The class advisors.
Yeah, they're
Staff
they're staff and teachers, yes.
Yeah, so like the class advisors.
My understanding is that if looking for the courses, if you are taking a course for one whole year, is it 5 credit?
Yes.
And some of them say it's a 6 credit.
So you're talking about music?
Is it music or some?
You know, it's funny, I had that in the other presentation and I took it out because I didn't think it was important. I think you're talking about the music courses, and so previously, if you were taking band or orchestra or chorus, you would schedule for a 5-credit class and then a 1-credit lesson. They were separate, just on your schedule. Now they're just going to be combined into one 6-credit course. So it's a minor change, but it's a 6-credit course instead of a 5 or 1-credit course.
When will they take the class, the 1-credit class? Is that throughout the thing?
You mean when is the lesson?
Yes, yes.
The students schedule their lessons with the teacher at different times, sometimes during lunch, sometimes during study hall. They work that out with the teacher. The lesson.
So it's not, because I had a son that graduated. For him, for chamber, I think they did the lesson during lunch.
Most of the time, that's true. I just didn't want to be too, like, I think that the students do work it out with the teacher, but it's often during lunch or study hall. Rhea? That's fine.
Okay, I had another question, which was, there seemed to be a student orientation on August 28th, or something like that at the high school. So this is a day where the students have to go to the high school or should go to the high school. And what will be covered there? Because some of us might be traveling.
Talk about that. Some of that was the surprises I was talking about, but Mr. Krauss will speak about that.
So since I've been here, the freshman orientation has been broken up into two-hour units where generally students with last names A through L would come from, I think it was 9 to 11, and then the rest of the alphabet would show up from noon to 2. And, you know, it was somewhat, in my opinion, dry, where just basic information would be given to the students. And what we've been planning with a group of freshman teachers, and Ms. Dewsbout, who is the assistant principal in charge of grade 9 next year, and with Ms. Smith, is to try to bring the entire class in at once, all 450 of them, and have a longer day of 4 hours to provide certain information, students would run their schedule through the building with assistants. We'd have planned activities for them to do, some learning, some fun, and hopefully provide lunch for them so they can be one unified class on one day. So that's really what's in the works at this point. I really can't, I mean, we're still working on it. It's an ongoing process, but that's what we've been developing probably since, I don't know, October sometime. So we've been meeting regularly, monthly since then.
But you'll be setting up.
Yes, yes, the
And that's the
information
date.
will come out.
That is the date.
Yes, it's like August 28th is the date, correct. Okay.
Hi, for the financial education portion, so that's a class you take during the year, but you have to take the test during the summer?
No, there are currently, I think, 4 ways that you can meet that requirement, the 2.5 credit requirement. So there is a class you can take on your schedule anytime financial literacy is 12th grade. I'm pretty sure there's an honors level of that course available. You'd have to look at the program. Yeah, and then you can also meet that requirement through the AP course in economics, right, currently, and that's only through 2022. The other way is currently an online offering, right, through one of our online providers, but that is no longer an option through just any provider. That's the option where if you wanted to take the course online, you basically learn the course through the online offering. There's a course outline, there's assignments, there's reading materials, but you come in for the assessment once you've completed the course. So there's different ways to meet the requirement. Yeah. Did you want to wrap up? Do you have anything else to wrap up? All right, well, thank you very much for coming. Certainly reach out to us if you have any questions at all.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks a lot.